Max, let's move on
Yeah.
to the third topic, which is also brought to you by you. What do you want to talk about? What's the second thing you want to talk about?
So I can talk about. Although I didn't think the soda one would be as lengthy, but
Oh, come on, you're with me.
we
I'm gonna make
diverged.
everything lengthy.
That's not. I mean, it was great.
Yeah, come
I
on.
loved it.
I'm impressed. We made that into a 17-minute topic. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
So my second topic would be in terms of video games and their length, particularly those that are short in length. Sometimes we don't like it. Like an example, the Order 1886 was more of a movie. But when is it in video games? When is short length okay? And what game have you played where the game was a little short, but it wasn't really a problem?
I'm gonna give a couple examples right off the bat, and I'm just gonna name some things, and then I'll sort of explain why I think they do it well. The main contender, and when you talked about this topic before we recorded, this was the first thing that came to mind, is Journey. Journey is like a 3-hour, 4-hour possible
Sure,
experience,
short,
and it's like one of the shortest games I've ever played, and I honestly think that's like one of the greatest games of all time. And then Undertale, I would say, is technically short, but if you play it over and over again, get different endings and all that stuff, it becomes a little more lengthier.
Yep.
That like sort of one playthrough is only about like 6 hours, which is shorter than 1886, I believe.
Yeah.
That's like
4.
8. Like people like would get up to like 6 or 7 hours.
Oh, so instead of speed runs, they would do length runs.
Yeah, exactly. And then what are some other ones? Those are the main two that I can think of right now. I don't know. Like, what are some examples that you have that you think are okay because of like,
Even though that they're
that they're short? Yeah.
the big one that I had in my mind was actually Halo 3, because its campaign is actually kind of short. You compare it to Halo 1 and 2, and a lot of people were griping about it. But I look back on Halo 3's campaign as a whole, and I'm like, well, the setting's super diverse as it usually is in Halo games, and you do a lot.
Yep.
Like you get found by the Marines as chief. You go and kind of defend against like this upfront invasion from the Covenant because they finally made it to Earth.
Yep.
And then you fight you fight a scarab that's really cool, and then the Flood comes in right after, and you're like, nah, I have to deal with this shit.
God, the Flood's so terrifying.
And then,
I remember playing Halo 1 for the first time, and like, God, what year did that game come out?
I want to say like 2001 was Combat Evolved. Was it 1998?
No, Combat Evolved is the first Halo.
Oh, I thought it was a revisited one. I thought they redid it for some reason towards PC, but I think it was 2001 then.
Yeah, when it came out on Xbox.
Yes.
Like that's when I first played it. I remember just being fucking terrified because I was like 6 or 7 years old. I was like, holy shit!
And it's just like, oh, it popped. It's going inside the dead body.
Yeah, exactly. And it like, God, the Flood's so cool.
It's a great idea.
But yeah, I also like I don't talk about this, but I actually really love the Halo games.
I do, yeah.
And I honestly think the first 3 it's like a really cool like trilogy, and it was sort of why I think continuing Halo is sort of it's like beating a dead horse at this point.
It's not bastardizing it, but it is milking it.
Yeah, and like I think they should have really ended on 3. Then maybe after that, like you do ODST and Reach, and I think isn't Reach where you have like the entire different team aspect. Isn't Reach where like at the end of Reach it's like the beginning of Halo 1?
Yes.
That one was fucking awesome.
Yeah, that one was great. That ending where it's just like the infinite waves of Covenant just to make you feel hopeless.
Yes, so good. It's like the ending of Red Dead Redemption. It's so fucking cool.
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, Halo 3's campaign, it was like the great like wrap up of like a trilogy of a story, and like it was just so
it's
cool.
a very explosive campaign, but not like
and the fucking ending when you're like you're friends with
Arbiter.
Yeah, and like you're driving off of like the ship, and you're like you drive off of the thing,
the ramp
into
the frigate, and then like it gets cut in half by the portal.
Yes,
so much shit happens.
So much shit happens, and that's a good example because like I have not played Halo 3 in fucking God. At this point, I was living in Alameda at the time. So this must have been. I haven't played like the Halo games in about 5 years.
I remember when 3 came out. It was when I first got a 360, and I got that as a bundle from my parents for Christmas.
Mm.
And then I was like, I don't feel right, so I spent some of my like other Christmas money on getting like the first 2.
Mm.
And like I didn't have Live for about a year,
Okay.
so I fully explored those games to like their full extent.
Yes.
And I just made the most fun out of it, and I loved the experience. It was
Yep.
great.
But sort of going back to Journey and sort of, I think games need to be short every once in a while because you can't always have these like long, crazy experiences like The Witcher and fucking an endless fucking adventure like No Man's Sky, where like No Man's Sky will never end. You're just always going to be playing.
You
that.
were
And
in the abyss, and he stares back.
exactly. Like I am right now. I'm like 20 hours into that game, and there's like no sight to an end. So I think when you have those like fucking 150-hour experiences, like that's the literally amount of time I put into The Witcher. You need games to balance that out, and those games are still allowed to be good just because they're just because you pay a little less for them and just because they're a little shorter doesn't mean they're bad. There are movies out there that are only an hour long that are still good.
Still really good. Yeah.
Christopher Nolan's first movie, The Following, is a really, really good movie, and it's only like fucking 65, 70 minutes.
A bunch of stuff directed by Brad Bird is actually pretty short, but it's really good. Like Iron Giant and The Incredibles, same guy.
No, I know that, but I can't remember how long The Iron Giant was.
It wasn't very long.
Huh.
Like I watched it again, thinking it was long.
And I think, and I honestly think like that's a silly way to think about in video games because this is something that has been accepted in movies for so long, and it makes sense because video games haven't existed as long as movies, so we're still growing in this medium. But I think we're starting to become cognizant of length does not defy the quality of a game.
Yeah.
And that's something we've known about movies for fucking ever. You can have a really good movie that's fucking 18 hours, like Gone with the Wind. You can have a really short movie that's really good, like The Iron Giant. Or The Following. And I think time should not, like, because a lot of people think like, oh, since I'm paying $60 for this game, it needs to be this many hours for it to be worth it and for it to be good. And I think that's a really...
But if it's short,
that's a mindset that existed 10 years ago. But we're in 2016 now, where we're getting a lot of these more artsy games like Abzu and Song of the Deep and all of these sort of like shorter experiences. And I think we need to start appreciating those things more, especially when we're getting into VR, where a lot of PSVR, I think it's going to be a lot of more experiences than full actual games. There are going to be full actual games like Rigs and I can't think of the series right now.
Give me Dark Souls adaptive VR, please.
No, that's you would never come out of that thing. What's the fucking horror franchise they're bringing back in January, and they're doing VR for
Resident
Evil 7.
Yeah.
And like there will be full games, but I think the things that are going to stand out in PSVR are going to be more of the shorter experiences that really stand out. Like a lot of people are saying the Batman VR thing that's being made by Rocksteady is really fucking awesome. I can't wait to like check that out. I probably won't because I'm not going to buy a PSVR because I'm a broke ass motherfucker.
Yeah, it's expensive.
I either had to choose to get a PSVR or to go to Maryland to hang out with fucking Alex O'Neill and Irrational Passions. And you know what? I decided to hang out with friends.
I think you chose the right one.
Yeah.
Just to back up your decision.
Oh, I've never really talked about that on the show. I'm going to Maryland in November for Extra Life. To do Extra Life with Irrational Passions. So we're going to raise a bunch of money for local kids' hospitals while playing video games for 24 hours straight.
It's a great cause. Yeah. It's a great time.
Yeah, exactly. So check that out when I go over there in a couple months. So it was either that or that. And, you know, I honestly don't think I'm going to get as much out of PSVR as I would want to. So that's why, you know, I'm going to wait for it to probably get cheaper after
maybe come out with
years.
Some more substantial stuff to play onto it.
Exactly. So I honestly don't think we should judge a game based on length. Now, I say that to an extent.
Games that are too long?
Not games that are too long. And we talked about this the first time that you were a guest on this show, with our video games becoming too long. And in that topic, I talked about I don't think video games are ever too long or too short unless the amount of content in it is not justified.
Yeah.
If you have a game that's as long as The Witcher, but there's not as much to do as there is in The Witcher, then what's the point of that being so long?
Stuff becomes artificial.
If you have a game that's as short as Journey, but you have too much shit going on that you want to do, but then you realistically can only beat the game in 3 hours, and then you have to fucking play it over and over again, it becomes a little it becomes too much at that point. It becomes repetitive, and I think you got to have like a justified amount of content to justify length, and that's sort of my problem now after 20 hours with No Man's Sky at this point. Is like I still feel that wonder every time I go to a new system. I'm like, what am I gonna find here?
Rocks.
And then I keep finding the same shit over and over again. I keep finding the fucking same ships to buy. Like I like. There's this one specific ship. I'm gonna edit a picture into this video. Specifically, a picture from Grimecraft. You can follow him at Grimecraft. He's a local DJ who does like video game remixes and all that stuff. Local to SF, or not local, but he lives in SF. He got this really cool ship in fucking No Man's Sky, and I've yet to find a cool ship like that because it's that specific design I've been looking for. But I keep finding these like dumb ship designs over and over again. So I don't know if it's just my luck, because I think that's what No Man's Sky is like what you're gonna find is sort of luck, because it's all rendering in real time. So it's sort of based off of luck, like what you're gonna find. And I think that's the thing that bothers me. It's
Destiny
like after fucking
again.
After 20 hours, it's just like what's the point? And but there's still an enjoyment, and I think sorry, I'm turning this into No Man's Sky a little bit. But the one thing I haven't been able to talk about in No Man's Sky is like my friend was saying like, what's the point of No Man's Sky? Because you're upgrading just to upgrade, and but you know what? You're upgrading to be able to mine shit faster, to be able to get to different star systems faster, to travel faster, to not take damage as much.
Effort of
and that's
exploration.
literally the same thing you do in fucking online multiplayer shooters.
Yeah.
And it's just because it's not an online multiplayer shooter that it doesn't appeal to some people. So it's not a competitive thing. So that like you're not upgrading just to upgrade. You are in a sense, but it's in a different context other than multiplayer shooters where you're upgrading just to upgrade at that point. So.
Without PvP.
Exactly. So I don't know, like that's sort of my stance. Like I don't think a game could be too short or too long. It's just the amount of content has to justify that experience.
Yeah, which I agree completely on. And like the reason why I don't have a problem with a game that feels a little short, but the amount of content within it justifies it.
You said before we started recording that you played something recently that made you think about this, or did I imagine that?
I think you might have imagined that. I didn't play anything that recently that made me imagine it, but it's just like the nice thing about a game that's kind of short in length but with the justified amount of content is that it gives you reason to replay it after it's already offered you all or a majority of what it can.
And I think like we honestly like need those types of things, because I've been able to barely play video games these last couple of weeks just because I've been working so much at my day job and doing back end stuff for BGG, and a lot of that like takes me away from playing video games. So it's cool to find those shorter experiences that I can realistically play through the entire thing. And you need those like options for people who have jobs that isn't in video games, where they're constantly working and they can fucking play a game and sit down for a couple hours and play the entirety of a game. And it's also about like what different things each of these games offer. Right, like Firewatch to me personally was a little disappointing just because I don't think it paid off. But there's still like an interesting, like I don't think the ending paid off, like justifying the rest of the story. Like while I was playing through that story, I was like, oh, this is really cool, and then the ending, it was just like, oh, that whatever. So some people could play that though in like 4 hours and be like totally satisfied with that, and like that's totally cool. And I think that's really cool that we have that in this day and age of a lot of open world fucking crazy 80-hour game experiences. So like I don't know, like I'm just rambling on at this point.
It's subjective.
Yeah,
it really depends on the person truly, but there's some overlying principles.
What are some of the shorter games that you also like?
I'm trying to think. I don't know why I thought this until I played it again, but I thought Arkham City, the story was really, really good, but for some reason to me short. And then I played it again. I'm like, no, this is actually taking longer than I thought.
Oh, I can beat Asylum in 5 hours, and I can beat City in 5 hours. And that's just because I know those games like the back of my hand.
But justified content.
The entirety of Arkham City would probably take me longer, just because there's more to do than just like in Asylum. It's like main story and then Riddler trophies, and I can find most of the Riddler trophies while going through the main story. With Arkham City, like I can play the main story in 5 hours, but then you have like all of these side quests that you have to do, and that adds up.
One of the other shorter ones I played more recently. Well, it's short depending on how you go through it. First time it's going to take you forever just because you don't know the layout of anything. And there's like all the enemies and stuff. And if you do all the side bosses before the end, then it's lengthy. But Bloodborne, the main story itself, or the main like chain of story-based bosses, it's actually kind of short.
Okay.
Which wasn't too much of a problem because there's so much diversity in enemy types and the bosses themselves and the setting of where you are, that it was fun enough, and it provided enough of amount of like different experiences to justify for its length.
Okay.
But in reality, it's not as many as you would think.
Are video games allowed to be short? Fuck yeah, they are. They're allowed to be.
Yeah.
They're allowed to be short. We're allowed to have those like 1 day experiences. Fucking stop complaining.